Walking simulators are aplenty nowadays, and I have been a fan of games labeled as such like Gone Home, Vanishing of Ethan Carter, What Remains of Edith Finch, Layers of Fear, and Firewatch. Point is, I appreciate the genre. Hey everyone, it's me Gwen from Eep's Hideout, and this is a review of Dear Esther. It is said that this game is a starting point of the genre as a whole by being commercially released way back in 2012 when walking simulators are mostly mods of existing games. It was developed by the Chinese Room and they describe it as, and I quote, a first-person game about love, loss, guilt, and redemption, driven by story and immersion rather than traditional mechanics. It's an uncompromisingly emotional experience. True to their word, the game starts out on a picturesque shore where the player is immediately greeted with the game's music and narration that reads like a letter that starts with Dear Esther, which is exquisitely done by Nigel Carrington. The player starts with no background whatsoever, even who exactly are they controlling. A story is then unraveled by exploring the island where certain points activate an audio narration, again as a letter to the titular character, which add details to the game's lore. From a technical standpoint, there are no actual game mechanics aside from WASD to move and click to zoom. There are even no controls for crouching and turning a flashlight on because that is automatically done by the character. There's also no sprinting or jumping. It truly is a walking simulator, more so than all the games I mentioned during my intro. Now, some might immediately walk away and ignore this game just for that reason, but for me, I don't mind it. Games like this are all about the experience, and this game has immersed me enough because of the whole mystery of the story. A story that is told not overtly straightforward, requiring a lot of thinking and deduction from the player, especially as there are actual moments that made me go, what the? Even after experiencing the game, the story is still open to a lot of interpretation, and as such encourages discussion outside of the game amongst players. Each player might carry a different understanding of what the whole narrative is all about, even to how many characters are actually being described in the story. Even the genre can be debatable, as some might tag this as horror even with the absence of jump scares, as there are horror elements in it that I won't spoil. However, the story is not extremely vague that the player will be left with no clue at all to what happened. Putting aside the lack of game mechanics, which are what walking simulators are being criticized for, the game is well made, with a good level design that naturally directs the player on paths needed to be taken. The game also encourages exploration, and even me, who always deliberately takes the quote, road less traveled, has missed 2 voice lines and all collectibles on my first playthrough. It is also good that there are no blatant invisible walls, and straying off the path, for example, if you decide to just swim away through the ocean, is allowed, but there will be an animation and voice line triggered before transporting the player back to safety. Hence, one cannot actually die in this game. The game is short and averages at around an hour and a half of playtime, and it might be a little bit slow at the start, but my curiosity is enough to make me continue exploring up to the point during the last chapters where the game picks up both visually and narratively. The performance of again Nigel Carrington is good, especially with the game's soundtrack and sound design, which can be fully appreciated especially at the latter half of the game. The game is more of an experience that relies on its story theme and focuses more on immersion than game mechanics. The story piqued my curiosity enough to finish it through, and although it might not be as effective as games like What Remains of Edith Finch and Firewatch, it is still a solid experience that is visually and auditorially appealing. This has been Gwen, that was Dear Esther, and if you liked the video, why not like, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification. Do also comment what you think of the game or about walking simulator games in general. Thank you for watching. Bye!